Check the levels, check the levels. How we looking? They look good? All right.
Elon was in the news, and he got a lot of Bitcoiners kind of on the wrong side that burst out, and a lot of people found it interesting or controversial.
The one and only Max Keizer, we're sitting down doing this, and so we're in Phoenix, and we are on your F Elon Tour.
F Elon Tour, yeah.
F Elon Tour. I think that came from Bitcoin Miami, and that's kind of a continuation, or how did that come apart?
Right, the Bitcoin Miami event. When I came on stage to do the Michael Saylor chat, it just kind of burst out. You know, Elon was in the news, and he got a lot of Bitcoiners kind of on the wrong side, and so it burst out, and a lot of people found it interesting or controversial, and it's become now a pretty interesting meme. So we named the tour after them.
Yeah, well, you're no stranger to controversy, right? Controversy sells, I guess.
Well, we've been doing journalism for almost 20 years now, and because we do journalism for outlets like Al Jazeera English, Press TV, which is Iranian, RT, which is Russian, BBC, which is communist, we have a lot of controversy that follows us around, just because journalists tend to attract controversy if they're doing journalism.
Yeah, well, they should. Well, they used to do journalism, not so much anymore.
Right, journalism is a lost art.
Yeah, it's a lost art. So, what do you mean he got people on the wrong side?
Well, he initially got folks interested in, that he was taking a look at Bitcoin and buying Bitcoin, but he immediately did the rookie mistake of getting involved in the shitcoins. Yeah. And number one, and then in subsequent interviews, he was kind of making fun of El Salvador as being kind of a backwater country, wasn't going anywhere. That was very rude. Yeah. He was talking about Bitcoin node operators as not really essential, or overlook them. So he didn't do the homework, unlike Michael Saylor, who did the homework, has done the homework, really understood it, got into it. Elon is a dilettante. Yeah. He just flew, he's a flyby guy. He's like, oh, this looks cute, and he's like an airhead. Yeah.
That's a great point. Now, you are like the OG in the space. I saw something from you the other day, like 2011, you were like saying like, I want to get 1 million people into Bitcoin back in 2011. So you've been around a long time. I'm curious to get your take on this because, I've been in since like 2015, which is a long time, but not near as you, but I had my own path down the altcoins, and it seems like the more research you do, the roads come back to Bitcoin. And I don't know anybody, and I'm curious from your viewpoint, like it seems like the more work that somebody puts in to do the research, nobody decides it doesn't work, right? It's almost like once you've done the work, like you're bought in. If you're surface level like Elon, maybe, right? But have you seen that?
No, the more the work you put into Bitcoin, the more your conviction increases, and the more you become Bitcoin maximalist. Right.
So nobody puts the work in and understands and goes, oh, this is never going to work.
I've never seen an
it's the opposite
of that ever.
Yeah.
In 10 years, I've never seen anybody who put in a lot of work and decided that it actually was something that they weren't interested in. It never happened.
Yeah, it's never happened. So I thought that was an interesting viewpoint. Now, I'm super interested in your take on like some international things, because I know you've lived all around the world, and as you said, you kind of do news for these different outlets. I've always thought that, specifically around Bitcoin, that at some point it's going to be the battle for the ages, because the world doesn't want to give up their grip on fiat. Specifically, the dollar doesn't want to give up their grip on the dollar reserve asset. But that's a U.S.-centric view. What about from other parts of the world that maybe doesn't have the dollar reserve asset? Do you think there's a difference there?
No. No. Starting in 1971, we just had the 50th anniversary of the Nixon Shock. The Sunday night, U.S. closed the gold window, and we went on this massive global experiment for the first time. All fiat money. No fiat money backed by anything than other fiat money. Yeah. And then during the 50 years, you've had collusion. Nomi Prinz wrote an excellent book called Collusion.
I've read
all
that.
The central banks kind of work together in keeping interest rates artificially low, by keeping the money spigots pumped and pouring out all this fiat money, and by essentially making it easier to commit financial fraud, because financial fraud is financed ultimately by borrowed money. And if the cost of borrowing money is near zero, you are allowing and condoning all that financial fraud to just become rampant throughout the globe. And this is what we've seen, and this is the problems. Just about every single problem you can point your finger at has its root in
too much free money. Yeah. I just did a video on that 50th anniversary of that Nixon Shock, and I grabbed a clip of his address when he announced that. And there was a lot of things that are important to talk about, but one of them was he was saying we have to protect the dollar from the speculators. Because the speculators, well, one, the countries were demanding gold, we don't want the fake currency. But two, the speculators, like kind of the famous story of Soros, how he broke the Bank of England speculating. So everybody knew that they had printed too many dollars and they wouldn't do that. And I just thought, if they never printed the dollars, they wouldn't have had to protect it from the speculators. Hey guys, let me just interrupt this interview real quick just to plug the show sponsor, and that is BlockFi. Now, BlockFi is doing amazing things in the Bitcoin finance space. As a matter of fact, they've cracked some really big news by bringing on the ex-CFTC chair, Chris Giancarlo, and they are one of the most transparent, most heavily regulated companies inside the United States, which gives me a lot of trust into what their services are. Now, I've recently did a video talking about how to retire off of Bitcoin, and you can do that by leveraging debt and interest against Bitcoin, and BlockFi is the number one company in the United States, or maybe in the world, to go to and use. They are leading the charge. They're paying interest on your Bitcoin if you park it with them, or you can borrow against it. Now, as I broke down in that video, you can borrow against your Bitcoin, and when you take debt against it, it's not taxable. It's not a taxable event. You can use that debt for anything that you want, including to live off of, to leverage up and buy more, or roll it into another asset. You can do something like I've done recently, like sell some real estate, put that money into Bitcoin. Now, as that Bitcoin price has risen, I'm able to borrow against it and go back and buy the same real estate or something similar. And I still own the Bitcoin, and I also own the new asset as well. Lots of ways you can do this. And BlockFi is the company that I recommend. Down in the description, I have a link that you can click on. If you choose to use that link, you can earn up to $250 in Bitcoin just for using that link. So check out BlockFi now.
All right. Well, speculators are a scapegoat when policy fails. I mean,
right.
You have capitalism, it's made up of free markets, and you have buyers and sellers, and regulators regulate these markets so that price discovery is equanimous throughout the entire system. And I just butchered that word, but I'm not going to bother going back and trying to repronounce it. Nevertheless, when you have a situation like Nixon had in 1971, where America went too far into debt to pay for the Vietnam War, they effectively defaulted on their gold obligation to Great Britain,
right,
by saying, we're not going to send you our gold, we're going to send you more paper money. So if the speculator in this case was Nixon, and he's speculating that Great Britain would take paper and not go to war.
Right.
I think Great Britain would have justifiably sent, like France, sent a warship to New York, I guess it was, to pick up their gold. So they thought it was an act of war to try to monkey around with their money. Great Britain should have done the same thing, really. But so that's where the speculation. He was speculating on the spinelessness of the British people. Yeah. And he correctly bet that they would be jellyfish and not respond. Yeah. So it's been 50 years. So we had, 5,000 years of gold as a monetary standard, and now we're 50 years in this monetary experiment of fiat currency. And it just seems like when you look at the world, you kind of mentioned a minute ago, like interest rates are at zero, $300–400 trillion of debt. Like how fast and how far it's come. It just seems like, how much longer can it go for? I mean, have they pushed it to the max? Right. The swing vote is China. So China has been a huge beneficiary of the monetary system in the last 20 or 30 years. They elevated themselves from third world status up to being a superpower. So the question is, at what point is China going to open the trap door on the US dollar, in conjunction probably with a move on Taiwan? They have to feel comfortable that they can do that. And to do that, they have been hoarding gold quite voluminously, hundreds and hundreds of tons. They've got the One Belt, One Road initiative that ties China, Russia, Iran, and now Afghanistan will probably join that quartet. Yep. They, I think, believe that they're close to being in a position to make a move on Taiwan. They had a trial run with Hong Kong. They co-opted, annexed Hong Kong without any pushback, really. No problem there. So I think it's all go for Taiwan in 2020, 2022, 2023. Yeah, and what do you think the significance of Taiwan is? They're going to, well, it would, 80% of the chips are manufactured in Taiwan. It's a hugely strategic asset for China. From a technology side. Technology side, so it's they want it. So I think that they're going to get it, you know. And
well, they've already told everybody they're going to get it. That Japan said, if you attempt it, we're going to step in. And they said, if you even show one soldier, we're going to nuke your whole island. I think they said.
Right, and they have great allies, you know. I mean, Japan is entirely dependent on foreign oil. They have no domestic oil at all. So that would mean that they would be easily defeated.
Yeah.
I think also another major swing player in this whole thing would be Germany, because Germany, I think, is going to essentially leave NATO and side with Russia, China, Iran, Afghanistan, and go east for the pipeline. They already have the Nord Stream 2 is already going right from Russia right to Germany, and they've got like 30 or 40% of their energy directly comes from Russia now, and the U.S. can't compete on that front. And so I think that'll kind of tip the balance to a new century, a new alliance, and the biggest trade zone in the world would be one road, one belt, one road. It wouldn't be the EU. EU is currently #1, but I think they're overtaken by this new this new trade zone.
And to your point, China's done that all with the dollar. So they've weaponized the dollar against us and kind of built this empire, this whole Eurasian landmass. So you talk about it like being oil, which is kind of interesting because obviously the dollar switched from gold back to this kind of petrodollar.
Right.
But now today we have like this whole ESG narrative going around, and like now we have activist shareholders taking over Exxon, and like now they're not even going to be in the oil business anymore. Germany seems to want to be getting rid of all their fossil fuels and even nuclear. So you still think that has a lot of weight?
Well, let me make sure I understand the question. So ESG.
Well, it seems like the
flavor of the month. We used to call it social responsible investing.
Okay.
And that's morphed into ESG. And this is a talking point in the talking shops around the world, like Davos and things like that. So, what do you exactly?
Well, it just seems like you're saying like tie all this together with the oil, but it seems like at the same time all these countries are trying to get rid of the use of oil, get rid of fossil fuels altogether. So it doesn't seem like it'd be the thing to unite everybody when everybody seems to be trying to get off of it, I guess was my point, right? They're trying to move to renewables as opposed to fossil fuels.
The oil business isn't going away.
Right. The supply may dwindle, but the demand's not going to.
Chinese coal capacity, I think it just went up again quite sharply.
Yeah.
Renewables are, it's not really going to be a factor. If you look at even the way, as you mentioned, the petrodollar, right? So the entire banking system is tied entirely to the oil industry because it's extremely capital intensive, and so they're also not going to be on board with a switch out of oil.
Yeah.
So ESG, it's a bludgeon that is used to kind of have a way to frame the narrative. You know, people will use that ESG to somehow shape news and shape the narrative and things like that. But it's not. It's purely cosmetic. There's absolutely no basis. There's no reason to think that this is a factor at all.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's definitely. I agree with you. It's definitely a way to control companies and countries even, and it may limit the supply, but the demand's not going away, right? So we're still going to have that. So I guess all this just kind of feeds into the bigger narrative. Obviously, we're Bitcoiners, and going from the Nixon shock, it's almost like these are just ripples that have been sent out. Like all these are kind of like effects. The Afghanistan piece, which you mentioned, we were talking about before recording, is kind of a big turn of events. What's happened there, and there's probably a bunch of opinions on that, but it's like, as bad as that was, like maybe that would have always been avoided if we didn't have the fiat currency from the Nixon shock. Would you say that?
Totally. Fiat money allows you to go in Afghanistan for 20 years without any objective, without any plan, and to just funnel trillions to defense contractors,
right?
To your buddies down the street in Washington. That's all it is. It's a pass-through mechanism to channel printed. It's the Cantillon effect.
Yeah, there was
played out as a war game.
There was someone put on Twitter a post from Julian Assange from 2011, 20 years ago or a decade ago, and he was saying Afghanistan is going to be a way to funnel money from the taxpayers to these multinational companies. And then you see it today, and it's like exactly what you're saying, exactly what happened.
Vietnam was the same thing.
Yeah.
Essentially the same thing. You know, I kind of, I'm surprised that America, after spending $2.2 trillion in 20 years, couldn't find Saudi Arabia on a map, right? They're like, we went in there after 9/11 because to reprise the attackers.
Yeah. And
for 29 cents you can go to a gas station and buy a world map.
Yeah.
And there's Saudi Arabia here.
Yeah.
Okay. Over to Afghanistan, that's not the same, right? So after 20 years, they finally figured that out. And they're like, we've made a wrong turn in Iraq.
We went a little bit too far to the side.
Well, how did that happen? It's like you're in a GPS in your car. It's broken, and you're in the parking lot for 30 minutes because it keeps telling you to go round and round and round. That's American foreign policy. They're completely stuck on stupid. Right? But they're spending trillions of dollars of fiat money, and there's never any penalty. But they just keep it in their pocket, and they go buy stocks and insider trading. And Nancy Pelosi, $60–70 million on the time in Washington, just trading in inside information. That's what we're paying for. Okay, just the list goes on and on and on and on. Fiat money, it breeds leprosy. The politicians are essentially fiat lepers. They live in a cave where they're just grabbing all this fiat money showered upon them from the Federal Reserve Bank and the Treasury Department, and they're like trolls under a bridge. And there's all the fat pigs, right? And that's what we feed. That's where our taxes go. It's a pigsty of vermin, mice.
Yeah, you mentioned the accountability piece. So there's no accountability. So of course, if they're not going to get in trouble, they're not going to lose their jobs, they're not going to get whatever, then they're going to keep doing it.
No, they just drop pallets of $100 bills into Afghanistan and hope that it's all going to work out well. Right, the guy just made up with $160 million of our tax money. Right, I was hoping to buy a goldfish or something for my house. Right, to put some life in.
Come on, a quarter, you got it. Like,
and now it's like, no, it's over in Dubai or somewhere, and he's living large as a good, Allah worshipping Muslim, down at the bar at 5 o'clock every night, getting sloshed on my money. Okay,
I know.
You should at least read the Quran, dude. Don't be an asshole is like chapter 1.
So under a sound money standard, under a Bitcoin standard, under a gold standard previous to fiat, countries would go to war, and if they calculated wrong, if they lost, then they go bankrupt.
Right.
And then there's real consequences. Wars would end, and then there would be consequences. They'd go bankrupt, and the country would fall, right?
That's right. Well, that's exactly right. You're limited to. That's why you had to be strategic. You had like Napoleon or whoever. Great generals because they were able to win wars given the constraints of their budgets. But if you have no budgetary constraints and you can just sit somewhere in Delaware behind a video console and start killing civilians like a video game, and you pay yourself millions of dollars and just watch dead people pile up on the street and give yourself a Budweiser at 5 o'clock. There's no reason to stop. Why would you stop? There's no human life has no value. In that scenario. So, I mean, karma's coming back. As Malcolm X said, the chickens are coming home to roost. It's going to be ugly.
Now, there's one parallel that we both have drawn that I want to discuss real quickly, and that was in regards to Afghanistan. Well, I started out saying that we've always kind of known that the powers that be are not going to want Bitcoin because it's going to take away their fiat control. And with Afghanistan, we were warned. Omar warned Bush, like, "Hey, come at it." Bush said, "We're going to come at you with everything. There's nowhere you can hide," and he said, "We'll wait you out." And so Afghanistan is notoriously has been called the graveyard of empires, right? So everyone that goes there gets defeated and then the empire falls apart. And there's something about Afghanistan that's just hard to kill. And so they just wait everybody out.
It's the Bitcoin of countries.
It's the Bitcoin of countries.
Right, it's decentralized. Right? So you can knock out one tribe or one hill or one group, and it doesn't matter because it's infinitely replicated throughout this entire region. Right. And there's no way to kill it for that reason. It's totally decentralized. The same reason why Bitcoin is unkillable, it's unconfiscatable, it's immutable, it's unstoppable. P2P file swapping, they've been trying to get rid of that for decades. They can't get rid of it because it's totally distributed. It's decentralized. So that's what Afghanistan has. So that was predictable that the U.S. would do exactly what they did. I think that going into Afghanistan, if there was any game plan, it was that we know ultimately that we could probably blow $2 trillion or more in this unwinnable war for our friends down at the Pentagon. Mm-hmm. Right, that was the plan. Like they did it. So it worked out beautifully.
Right. Because it worked out exactly like they wanted to.
Yeah, because the net worth of these guys has shot up absolutely dramatically. The wealth in America is increased by trillions of dollars, and that's the trillions that have been printed show up on the cap table of the net worth of those people who are benefiting from the genocide maniacs that are running the show in the same amount. It's like, here's $5 over here. Oh, now it's over there. How did it get there? Well, we pretended like we were looking for Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan after 9/11, and he was responsible for all that tragedy, even though it was not them, but we won't say nothing because Americans too stupid. Right. And they're like, it's a monetization of the mass stupidity of an entire nation. 300 million morons being wrapped in a bow, fiat monetized, and put in the pocket. Like, thank you very much, dumb fucks.
I mean, the U.S. spent $2.5 trillion. Where do you think it went? Where did they spend it? It went to those people, right? To those contractors.
It's in the stock market, the bond market, Park Avenue apartments, houses in the Hamptons, Modigliani's, Van Goghs, right? Wineries in France. That's what money went.
Hey, sorry to interrupt this video just one more time. I'm not running Google ads, so it's actually way less interruption than I normally would have on a video. And that's because it's sponsored by BlockFi. They are opening up the world of Bitcoin and financial products, offering to pay you interest on your Bitcoin, better than owning a rental property that you have to manage and control and have the risks. You can just earn interest on it, or you can leverage against it. Now, I plan to hold my Bitcoin forever and literally never sell my Bitcoin. So how do you do that? Well, if I need money, I don't want to sell that Bitcoin. I'm going to pay tax on it. All right. I'm going to end up with less, and I don't have the Bitcoin anymore. So a better way to do it is to borrow against the Bitcoin. So I've put all my money into Bitcoin. If I want to buy a car or I want to buy a house, I can borrow against it at very, very low competitive rates, get my house, get my car, whatever that may be, and get to keep the Bitcoin. Now, I've done a whole video on this. You can find it. I'll link it down in the description below, how to retire off of Bitcoin without paying taxes. And you can do that with BlockFi services. I'll link to the video down below. I'm also going to put a link to BlockFi. If you choose to click on that link to check them out, you can earn up to $250 in free Bitcoin just for using that link. And that's it. Let's go ahead and get back to the interview.
So bringing it back to Bitcoin, I mean, so obviously Bitcoin could fix this by preventing it from happening in the first place. But I also, like I said, like to think about it being hard to kill. So just like the Afghanistan was able to wait out the US government for 20 years, Bitcoin can just wait out this whole mess that's happening. I guess, what is it? If you stand by the river long enough, you'll see the bodies of your enemies coming by, kind of a thing.
I read an Afghan proverb this week. I learned something, which goes, you have the watches, we have the time.
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
Yeah, Bitcoin is just hodl. This is the Zen moment of hodl. It's like, the only weapon they have to fight Bitcoin with is to print more money. Which of course increases the hash rate, increases the security, increases the price. So the more you attack me, actually my net worth skyrockets. Thank you very much. So attack me all day long, please. You know.
And the more they attack it, the more they prove the use case for it almost, right? Like if the government says don't do drugs, it doesn't make you want to go do drugs. When they say you don't have the right to store your wealth in a way we can't confiscate, then it makes me want to do that.
Well, it opens up people's eyes like, well, what's going on here? Why are you concerned about this? And so people jump into the rabbit hole. And as we were saying before, the more you learn about it, your conviction goes up. And then the network effect kicks in, and now we've got 200 million users, soon it'll be 2 billion users. And all the math is on our side. You know, all the math is on our side, and all the fiat money, bizarre, runaway nightmare that's going on is also working in our favor. And there's absolutely no possible way that the central banks of any country right now, with the exclusion of Russia, are able to actually raise interest rates in a way that would stop this runaway freight train of hyperinflationary collapse against Bitcoin.
So I want to get into Max's crystal ball here.
Okay.
And not talking about.
I've got 2 of them up.
And not talking about price, because I don't care about the price. So if all we have to do is wait it out, if we stand by the river long enough, the bodies will fly by. And it seems like, I mean, the world's scary right now. We have censorship and oppression, and we're funding terrorism and all these things. The financial institution world is ready for a reset. I mean, their back's against the wall. And it seems like just left on their own, they're crumbling, right? The whole system's falling apart as you're making the case. With Bitcoin, we're even helping push it over the edge. So how long are we going to have to stand by the river before we see this whole system crumble? What do you think as far as like the future, 2 years, 5 years, 20 years, etc.?
Well, it's crumbling right now in different locations. So, and we don't hear about them because they're not reported by the news. So, like
other parts of the world?
Other parts of America.
Okay.
All right. So 90,000 dead people from OxyContin overdoses last year.
Does
anyone report that on the cable news? Those are deaths of despair caused by money printing and negligence, and kind of a soft genocide by the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
We have life expectancy in America going down for the first time. We have infant mortality going up. We have press freedom sinking, and not even the top 35 anymore in the United States. So we're already crashing, but it's just not being reported on. It's like the portrait of Dorian Gray, right?
It's like watching paint dry.
There's nobody upstairs that looks good though. This is the version of the portrait of Dorian Gray in America, where both the portrait in the living room and the attic both look like shit.
Yeah, so we're witnessing it. That's why I said it's crumbling around us, and given it's just on its own, it's going to fall apart. Yeah, it just seems like we're in for quite a ride over the next couple of years. So as long as we just hodl, right? I guess as you said, the Zen case of hodl, we'll just wait long enough.
Yeah, that's the best thing anyone can do. So Bitcoin was a gift, and it gives us a way to hodl through this period in history, and to come out the other side of it.
Do you think of it in terms of like holding my purchasing power, so that when we come on the other side of it, as you said, then we still have wealth that we can buy more goods and services, as opposed to buying this Ford number, go up technology, and we're all going to get rich and buy Lambos, right?
Right.
Is it the insurance, or is it investment, or is it both?
Well, you do come out the other side of it with your purchasing power, but more crucially, you come out the other side of it with something. Because we're heading into a situation where wealth's just going to be confiscated. In Germany right now, the yield curve on the entire German bond market is negative.
Yeah.
In nominal terms. So, and they're now applying that to people's bank accounts, their savings accounts.
Yeah.
So they're just confiscating money right out of your bank account in Germany right now. They're just taking your money. So this is going to be the situation all over the world. In the U.S., we have the world reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, so it's slightly different. But inflation does effectively the same thing. So they're just stealing money through the money printing, which causes all the inflation. And so it's confiscation of wealth. So it's about preserving purchasing power, but more importantly, it's about having some wealth. It's unconfiscatable, it's uncensorable. It's like if you were escaping Nazi Germany and you had no ability to walk out of there with anything, you were completely naked, but you had a seed phrase of Bitcoin in your mind of 12 words, you could move $1 billion. Right?
Yeah.
I could go to the airport tomorrow completely naked, land anywhere in the world, and have my wealth completely intact if I just have to remember those 12 seed words in the
I thought about that in seeing those pictures of all those people in Afghanistan trying to escape, and there's 700 people loaded onto one of those planes, and they didn't have anything with them. They had no luggage. They didn't have bars of gold. They weren't carrying their bank accounts or their real estate, but they could, and they probably didn't. But that's where Bitcoin comes in. They could just know those words in their head.
Right. It does give you some peace of mind also. Let's say you're in a stressful situation, like in Australia right now, which has gone essentially, they're making the Nazis, I think, blush.
Yeah.
Like the Nazis would look back and, if they could look in history, they would see what Australian government, and they'd be like, you guys get it.
Good job.
Good job, Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right? So they got an incredible advantage if you can actually give yourself peace of mind by at least knowing that at the end of the day, they cannot confiscate that. They could take my gold teeth, they could take my liver, they could take my kidney. Right. But they can't take my seed phrase. Yeah. So that gives me some peace of mind, like ultimately, and they can only kind of fund themselves through fiat money. So we know that's a path to annihilation. So we get to have the last laugh ultimately. And hopefully, in the craziness of the world that we have right now, people are realizing that if you want to remain free, you might have to be able to move around a little bit. Totally, you have to be very agile. So you want to be able to be agile with your wealth. And if you're, if we look back to Nazi Germany, early days of Nazi Germany, the rich Jews in Germany, they didn't want to leave.
because they had all their wealth. And they were stuck there, right? And so being able to have that wealth be portable.
And they're citizens.
Right.
Right. They're German citizens.
Right. So being able to be portable with your wealth is going to be a massive benefit in these coming years, I think.
It's the key difference.
It's the
first time in history
that
this is actually possible.
Right.
You have digital gold that is completely portable.
Yeah.
And you can't do it with gold or silver. It's not portable like that. So it's a very remarkable thing. So there will be Bitcoiners left over after the Fiat Holocaust. There will be Bitcoiners remaining who can restart civilization.
Yeah.
And we'll be fucking like bunnies.
Yeah.
And restarting humankind as Bitcoiners.
Yeah.
But there may only be, I don't know how many left, the Bitcoiners, true Bitcoiners, but they will inherit civilization, and we will have to start all over again.
We have to avoid large gatherings so they don't take us all out at one time.
Well, it's decentralized.
Yeah, decentralized.
So it's everywhere. There'll be a pocket.
Right.
So let's say that the U.S. military decides to drop a nuclear bomb on a Texas bit mining farm. Okay, they'll still be farming in Iceland.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we saw 50% of the network go down in China.
Exactly.
And didn't even do anything.
Exactly. Did not hurt. Tick-tock, next block. It
didn't
stop.
Yeah.
The Bitcoin protocol kept going and going and going. That's our savior.
Yeah.
We want to make it to the other side so we can be procreating.
Yeah.
Restarting civilization.
Yeah.
In a massive orgy of Bitcoin.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that we went through. I love that point of just being hard to kill, that decentralized and just waiting long enough, because we know the system's going to fall apart, and so we'll do that. So, and you've been
It's immortal.
It's immortal.
Bitcoin is immortal.
Yeah.
Right. So it has a mysterious origin. It performs miracles, and it's immortal. Where have we seen that before?
Yeah.
Huh?
We've seen that narrative last a few thousand years.
That's right.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin as the second coming of Christ is a viable idea.
Yeah.
I think so. It's a distributed Christ, decentralized Christ.
Well, definitely.
Christ blooming in a billion minds simultaneously, having the same revelation that love beats hate. It's all happening at one time. Imagine Christ 2.0.
There we go.
That is essentially Bitcoin.
Yeah. Nice. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I can't wait for the party tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll get to hear plenty of those rants.
Dude,
I can't wait for that.
Keep my energy going, like the Fig Newtons.
Yeah. What else you want to say? Anyone else? You want to talk about more events coming up, or?
Well, no. I mean, we got something coming up in Paris in September.
Oh, Paris.
And I lived in France for 14 years.
Yeah.
And so I know France very well. I know Paris very well. I'd love to go back to France anytime I can. And then from there, we're not sure, but we can, as you say, it's very agile. We can hopefully do more of these events that get people down into these kind of revival events.
So follow Max on Twitter and on YouTube, and that way you can find out where he's going to be and when he does the Paris event.
Totally.
Got it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.